Hello, hello, hello. Welcome back, crazy babies, to another episode of Jam Sessions, a Cosmic Creation Station production. Which way is it? There you go. Welcome back, and I hope you enjoy this next author. If you guys enjoy what you're seeing, what you're hearing, what we're doing, feel free to contribute to our initiative. The information will be in this post just above this video. We appreciate any contributions and support, and not only growing our platform, but using this platform to help others grow their platform as well. It's part of a small community of people who are looking to pave their way through creativity to a better life and to share their creativity with the world. So without further ado, then enjoy this next author. Thank you so much for being with us today. Hello, hello, hello. Welcome back, crazy babies. It has been a while. We are back with another episode of Jam Sessions. And this episode is particularly special to me because I have been waiting to break out into the local market of authors. And we have here with me today the first local author to my area, and I'm super excited about that. We have Kathleen Lyons. She is the author and creator of the series Aster-Blood, and today we're going to talk about the first two books in that series. But before we dive in, hello Kathleen, welcome.
Hi, it's great to be here and everything. I'm honestly still a little nervous, but hey, let's get right into it.
Let's do it. Who cares? We're gonna have fun with it. Like I said, I'm super excited. You and I are in the same town, and I have interviewed people in Tunisia, in Japan, and the last place I've made it to is right here in our hometown of Jasper, Alabama. And so you are the first local author. We're excited about that. Thanks for being here.
Oh, I'm so glad to be here. It's very much an honor, trust me.
The honor is all ours, and mine and all the viewers. So without further ado, tell us a little bit about the first two books in Aster-Blood series. Those books are Aboriah Lux. Aboriah
Lux is the first one, and Seraphim Awakening is the beginning of the sequel trilogy that comes after it. Basically, so how I like to tell everybody, it's basically a paranormal what if story. It's because I like dealing with like alternate universes and everything. I watch a lot of anime. That's particularly where this comes from. So in Aboriah Lux, it's basically something happens like in the early 1600s, early 1500s, and this is basically what happened after that. And it's usually something paranormal that happened. What's referred to as the trials. It's mentioned briefly in Aboriah Lux and Seraphim Awakening, but don't worry, I'm getting into another entire other book that actually goes right into that. So I really screwed myself over with how I'm writing all of these. But with Aboriah Lux, it takes place sort of in Victorian England, sort of primarily because it deals with a lot of aspects of that. I deal with a lot of stuff that actually happened in our own history, and I add little paranormal stuff into it. This one primarily deals with vampires. Seraphim Awakening, you see a little bit of a broader spectrum of paranormal creatures. So,
oh, wow. Hey, that's awesome. I mean, who doesn't love a good vampire character? I mean, that's excellent. And I really love, that's a creative approach. You've taken a lot of readers' favorite aspects, such as paranormal aspects, tying in some factual history, alternate parallel universes and dimensions. I love that. That sounds super exciting. Now, that is the first book in the series Aster-Blood. You mentioned the second book is Seraphim Awakening. As you get into that book and tell us a little bit about that one and how it follows up to Aboriah Lux. I'm butchering the name.
Lux, don't worry about it. It's all fine.
Aboriah Lux. As you get into Seraphim Awakening and tell us about that, tell us a little bit about what inspired this. I mean, where did you dream this up? I know you mentioned being inspired by anime, but where? Tell us how that process came to life for you.
Okay, so when I was doing Aboriah Lux the first time, I was working at a at the extrusion plant actually here in town. If you go down Bevel Industrial Boulevard, like DAPA, it's like right there. I was working on that and everything, and I was trying to find a way to sort of cope with sort of the mundaneness of the job and everything, because it was highly routine. And around the time I was actually listening to a lot of ASMR, a lot of paranormal ASMR and everything, just like storytelling bits. So one series in particular, it talked about a journey into the underworld and everything. And it's like, that's a very interesting thing. But then my brain started going crazy. I have undiagnosed ADHD. So it's like my brain splinters off. So with Aboriah Lux, it took a little bit more of a class system approach, where it's like it's sort of medieval on the outskirts, but it gets more and more modern as it gets into the inner circle of the city. With Seraphim Awakening, it takes a little bit more of a modern approach. It takes place during a relatively modern time, and it focuses around the descendants of the original cast of the first book.
Excellent.
And yeah, so I like the tie. There's a lot of tie-ins that if you read Seraphim Awakening, you actually have to go back to Aboriah Lux to actually read through what happened. And I wrote all 3 of the Seraphim trilogy books at the same time, because I was like one cohesive storyline.
Wow.
Yes, and a lot of POV changes. But I really liked the idea of in our own history, what would have happened if it was influenced by something paranormal or supernatural. In this case, it's basically a curse of basically mourning that turns these people who are gifted into vampires. Then the vampire gene is actually genetic. It's a genetic mutation. It's not a curse like it is in modern media. It's not even a curse. It's a very unique approach. And when I told my father about it, and he's like, "That's very interesting. You don't see that a whole lot." And it's like, well, yeah, because everybody focuses them on being monsters. And in this case, they're not really monsters. It's just something that they're born with, or in some cases, like with one of the main characters, Silas, he's actually sort of cursed with it because he's a Dompier. So he's half vampire, half human, and it's sort of it's a struggle for him.
Wow, that is a really awesome take on that. We do have a certain perspective when it comes to what a vampire is. So to hear someone, I love when people take everyday ideals and recreate them, or give them a new spin. So I think that's a really cool aspect. And I mean, I look forward to even getting my hands on this book and finding out what you did to the idea of vampire. I was even watching, I think it was yesterday or today, I was on TikTok scrolling, as we all do. And there was a lady who's actually, she lives in New Orleans, and she's come out and she's publicly speaking about an interaction she had with a real life vampire. And she's claiming that vampires, they're real life vampires, and there's 4 different kinds or breeds of vampires, and they're walking around everyday life. So I think it's really cool. Art imitates life, and right now you must be what we do as an individual, I think, ripples out and affects the collective. And who knows, you could be reinventing an archaic story, of vampires, and reintroducing it to the human collective. That's really cool.
Yeah, well, the thing about it is that there's a whole lot of modern misconceptions about how we view folklore from around the world and everything. Everybody has their own version of folklore, and it's like, well, what if there's a version of it that sort of takes all the aspects of what we know from other cultures, but it sort of like humanizes it a little bit. So
that's incredible. And you mentioned before we jumped in the studio here, we talked about being in the gray area, in the middle.
Yeah.
And when you take if a painter knows this, if you're painting with all the colors and you dip it into the water to clean your brush, you're going to end up with gray water because it's pieces of everything. So I love that you're taking little pieces of everything, finding little truths or aspects, and creating maybe not even a whole new version, but the version that was always meant to be in the first place.
Yeah.
Which is pieces of
You mentioned that about being an artist. I'm getting back into art myself. I just spent like an entire week with my friend in Virginia, just like literally doing nothing but art and also editing bloodlines. So.
Oh, wow. That's incredible.
So, yeah.
Now, well, can your fans expect to see some of your art integrated into your books, maybe?
Well, yes and no. For Aboriah Lux and everything, the original cover, I wanted to keep the original cover, but I was told by someone to check out getcovers.com. So when there's a little bit more to do with that, I may actually go back to the original cover. Because the original cover, I was very, very proud of it and everything. And I finished it all in a day. So, because I did it all on my phone and I was hyper focused.
Right.
But for Seraphim Awakening, and Bloodlines and Requiem and everything, all three of those are all the covers that I've done personally.
Oh, wow.
So all of that is all of my original artwork and everything. I do use some templates and everything for the wings. I need for the wings and everything, but the coloring, the color schemes and everything, that's all mine. So.
Oh, that's awesome. So we already are privy to some of your artwork. That's even great to know for fans that get their hands on your book. Not only are you responsible for the story itself, but even the cover art. Now, give us, as the author, give us maybe a tidbit from the first book that maybe is your favorite aspect of the first book. Maybe it's a certain scene or a character you created. Give us a little cliffhanger on what the author thinks of her own work.
Okay, hold on a second, because my cat's coming in. You'll get to see my my little writing familiar Tolkien if he decides to get into the view here.
Oh, that's awesome, Tolkien, and we are pet friendly, so come on in, Tolkien.
He's a cat, so he's lounging. What are you doing? Just sit right there. So, one of my favorite characters from Aboriah Lux as a whole, good Lord, there's so many, because it's oh heavens, because it's there's so many of them that I put a lot of thought into, and I actually went in the middle of the second or third drafts and everything. I did a lot of rewriting, and as one would do, and I would guess that one of my favorite characters would have to be, oddly enough, one of the red herrings of the book. Actually, it's a character that you're supposed to hate, because she's so elitist in everything. She appears the first time she appears is in one of the later chapters, when a little bit of a spoiler, the summer soiree party starts and everything, and of course she's one of the elite. She is privy to all of this and everything, and our main characters go into our main characters are invited and everything into are invited to the party, and she's just and she just hates one of the main characters so much, just because he was technically born out of wedlock, and yet he's sort of a stain on on the family reputation and everything.
That's awesome. That is really cool. Okay, so what is the name of this character, so we can look forward to loving or hating her?
Well, you're going to absolutely love to hate her and hate to love her at this point. Her name is Duchess Marine. And she is actually the grandmother of Asilas, one of our main characters. And let's just say that she's, think of that high school bully that you sort of know is going to get what's coming to them, and they end up getting what's coming to them later.
Yes.
Twofold, actually. Actually threefold if you count what happens in the middle of the soiree, but I won't spoil anything else other than that. So
that's awesome. Now, jumping into Seraphim Awakening, the second book that follows. Now you have to give us the same for that book. I love giving just enough for the readers to want to go grab these books, because this has got some interesting stuff in it. So tell us about Seraphim Awakening, as far as maybe one of your favorite aspects.
Okay, so what I like a lot about this series is that I like to deal with the psychology and emotion of what characters are going through. I grew up in my entire time when I was doing English classes and everything, I was doing character analysis for a number of different characters, and it was just something that I decided to incorporate into my writing. For Seraphim Awakening and everything, it gets for Seraphim Awakening and later on into like Bloodlines and a little bit in Requiem, it gets dark, like psychologically dark, because of all of the things that our main characters go through. For Zyla, she's having to come to terms with the fact that there's this corrupt system that is basically tarnishing the legacy of Arborea Lux herself and all of that, and her and her colleagues and everything of the First Council. There's the mystery of what happened to her sister, who her parents really are, and like all of this. There's for Phoenix and everything. Phoenix has to deal with like what exactly is going on with her. Will you stop? He's wanting to grab at my hand.
I see that. It's so cute.
But he's a little snuggle bug. But the entirety of the Seraphim trilogy and everything is that it's all based around human emotion and basically how like different people deal with certain bits of trauma. And also, I will say this, it does get a little dark in terms of psychological manipulation.
Right.
Because there's a little tidbit in Arborea Lux that definitely plays a part in the Seraphim trilogy. And it's what Zyla sort of hates herself for. It's this ability that she was born with that she really doesn't want because there's such a stigma around it. And of course, that stigma comes from the events of the first book. So there's a lot of tie-ins in there that I like. I liked like tying in and doing little Easter eggs from Arborea Lux into the Seraphim series.
Those are fun
and
for the
it's
reader,
like,
for sure.
Yeah, and it's like it expands the world, but at the same time, it really makes everything seem real. Like things and like this has actually happened. Well, stop messing with my computer.
Well, I love to, the best way for humans to see themselves, to address the human condition, is through fiction. You know, I've quoted so many times, and I might as well just claim it as one of my favorite quotes because it's so trivial and playful, but at the same time, it's so deep and meaningful. And that's Mary Poppins when she sings "A spoonful of sugar helps the medicine go down." And you know, to be able to read about the human condition and to work through traumas and how humans respond emotionally and psychologically and read it through characters, it's like having a creative lens to see ourselves in. So that's a really cool aspect. Now, tell us about you, the author, Miss Kathleen Lyons. You're obviously a very talented story maker. You're the creator of worlds and of characters from the beyond. And you're also a real life human being here in this world with us. So what else? You're obviously a fan of Tolkien because you've named your familiar after Tolkien. What else? What else is cool to know about you in addition to all this great, wonderful work you're putting out?
I tend to do a lot of research and a lot of stuff for Arborea Lux and everything. I actually based a little bit off of the mythology of the Tree of Life and everything. If you actually look at the cover of Arborea Lux, it is the Tree of Life, but it's putting my own spin on it. I love mythology and everything. I am one of those people that believes that there's no right religion.
Oh yes.
And of course anybody who went to church with me and has seen this is probably thinking I've renounced the church. I sort of have, because Christianity is that in itself is a very gray area. But talking about my writing and everything, I've wanted to be a writer since I was like 5 or 6 years old. I was writing I was scribbling stories at that point, creating characters and just acting them out. And that's one thing that I'll actually do with my writing, is that I'll try to put myself in the mindset of a character, whatever point of view it's from, and I'll see how that thing goes. It's like I don't know if this is a psychological problem, because it's like I find it so easy to write the darkest sides of characters, but also the trauma of what characters go through. So I don't know if it's a psychological problem or what, or if I'm just a good writer. I don't know. But
maybe a little bit of both.
Yeah, but this is a culmination of a lifelong dream for me. When I finished Arborea Lux, I felt like this just wave of euphoria because I had finally finished a first draft, and I had gone back, went through, did my annotations and everything. I'm sort of split down the middle. I write everything by hand, like for the first 2 drafts, and then I'll type it out. It's actually the same way with how I do most of my artwork. But I call it the anatomy method, because it's like your first draft and everything, it's basically like you're just getting the story down. Your second draft, it's adding in the details, putting stuff in, taking stuff out, and then when you get to the third draft and you're actually typing it out, you add in the details and you correct the mistakes as you go. So that's a little sneak peek into my process and everything. I do it for every single one of my stories, no matter what. So,
well, I think that's really cool because you call it the anatomy process. The whole time you've been talking, all I can think to myself when you talk about the characters and the work that you've put into not only their story, but their psyche and their emotions and how they would behave if they were real, all I could think is that you are their creator. You literally are their creator. If you think that everything exists in the dimension that it exists in the world that you've created for them in some alternate dimension, you've created these beings and you are their creator. So even what you call your process, the anatomy process, is like creating a human anatomy. So I think that's really, really neat.
I also mentioned before we started and everything that I mentioned that I was being part of this interview to my D&D group.
Yes.
I was actually we were actually like leapfrogging DM responsibilities and everything. And in my particular campaign that we were doing that for the group and everything is actually a story that I wrote, and I was using that as an opportunity to world build.
Oh, wow.
So, because I got to like one certain part and I was like, I don't know how to finish it. I don't know how to finish this chapter. I don't know where it goes from here. I need help. So I was just like, you know what? I'm going to get my D&D group in on this. I'll have them help me with all of this. And we've gone from like one city of elves called the City of Trees to like an entire continent with like varying ecosystems and everything. And it's like the only thing about it is that we've not met in over 2 years. So I have everything planned out, but I can't use it for a D&D. Now, good thing is that I technically can use all that world building, but at the same time, it's like, crap, I really wanted to see everybody's look on their face when they see what happens at the end. So
right.
But that's an aspect of storytelling and everything. It's like I'm wearing a shirt that says storyteller. But I've always thought of myself as a storyteller. So because I love going into detail about things. I sometimes ramble on to a certain degree. But I love sharing creativity with people. I love sharing my stories with people because it's like sometimes it's good to escape from the stresses of real life for a little while.
Oh, absolutely. So. I mean, when we talk about the importance of the arts and the literatures in comparison or in side by side of, things like mathematics, it is very much that. It is very much an outlet for the spirit, for the soul, for the psyche, for our emotions. And it is, it's a huge necessity in the human reality. So, I mean, you're absolutely right. It is a great way to escape everyday life, to transmute things, to work through things. And I think my most favorite thing out of everything you've said and the thing I look most forward to reading your books is based in the fact that you encompass everything. You reject everything and accept everything all at once. And that is my motto. I'm actually ordained. We talked about religion earlier. I'm an ordained member of the Universal Life Church, which encompasses any and every recognized religion on this planet, including atheism and Satanism, because the idea is that every human being carries a part of the truth. And to have one group of people debate another group of people over whose innate understanding of where we come from, where we're going, and what we're doing doesn't trump the other. And so we all, as human beings, we're all born into life through the same process, the same birthing process. Our souls come from wherever the same place is, and we're going to wherever we're going. And we all have to be carrying parts of that secret. You know, if you think of us as pieces of a puzzle, we all have to have pieces of the truth inside of us. And so you can't really denounce anybody's perspective. You can't really say, no, that's not accurate. And so I love the idea of plugging in everything, considering everything as a possibility of truth, as well as being possibly flawed. So I think that alone drives me to want to get your books, because I'm excited. I'm excited to see that perspective play out through creativity.
I've got a few more books where that I actually play a little with that. I'll play a little bit with that idea. I've got a horror story in the mix. I've got some science fiction, which is not really my genre, but I'm getting into it anyway. But it encompasses a lot of mythology, specifically Norse mythology, and there's a lot of name drops of Norse mythology. But I like incorporating bits of mythology and everything into my stories, like I said before.
Right.
So there's that and everything. And of course, I try not to use the Jesus complex or anything that I've seen a lot of people do and everything. I mean, like even in Lord of the Rings, Frodo had the Jesus complex thing. So tell me I'm wrong. But it's interesting to look at it through the perspective of someone who's not really connected with a religion anymore. I'm not necessarily saying I'm an atheist. I'm just saying that I believe that everybody is right to an extent.
Exactly. So, everything. Yeah. There's pieces of
we got religious on this really fast.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I love that perspective. I love when we tie two different concepts, you know, religion, spirituality, and creativity into one. You know, that's always the common ground is always where you want to pull things. So for me, that was a big bullet point there. Now, I think you've touched on this with some of the things you just said, but what's next for Kathleen? Be it with this series or with another project, what can your fans and viewers expect to come out from you soon?
Expect more monsters, expect more romance, also expect a little bit more dark fantasy. My friend who's probably going to be watching and commenting on this video is going to say, yeah, she's turning into a monster smut fan. And it's like, I mean, like if you look at some of the books that I've got and everything, I mean, like I've got like Pestilence, War, Famine, and Death. I've got Promises and Pomegranates. I've got A Fate Inked in Blood. I've got The Familiar. I've got so many books that are just like that are wrapped around the monster X human trope. And I really, really like that and everything. And I don't know if it stems from my love of Beauty and the Beast or what. I just think that's a very interesting thing that a lot of people look for, but there's not really a lot of it done well. So I say done well, but a lot of people have a different way of how they do it and everything. I'm just excited to do it with how I do my writing, with all of the psychological stuff that I put in, all the emotion, and all that and everything. I'm excited to do that. So, this particular gray sexual, everything gray sexual is very, very happy to try that out.
Oh my God, I love that term, and how I've never heard it, I don't know, but I'm going to totally borrow that term. I identify as a gray sexual, and I didn't even know that. I love that. So listen, I want to plug your books, because I'm sure after this interview, I'm not the only person that is going to be very excited to want to get their hands on these books. I love all of your approaches, your perspectives, and I'm excited to see how they come to fruition. Now, the Aster-Blood series, the first two books that are out now, Aboriah Lux,
Arborea Lux, and Seraphim Awakening. Both of those are out on Amazon right now. And hopefully, as soon as I get everything done, I believe I should have everything ready for Bloodlines to come out on Halloween of this year.
So. Oh, wow. So the third one. So you guys are going to want to go ahead and get the first two books so you can get deep into this series. Go ahead and become a fan. That way, there's nothing worse than reading or watching all of your shows in a series, or reading all your books and then having to wait forever for the next one to come out. You guys are in the sweet spot right now. You're in the honey spot, because this is your opportunity to go grab the first 2 books right now on Amazon, and you're only going to have to wait till Halloween to get the next dose of amazingness.
Yeah, there's a reason I wanted Halloween to be the drop date for Bloodlines, is because Bloodlines is a very, very dark book. When you look at the cover art for it, you'll understand why, because it definitely reflects what's in the book and the story and everything, because there's a lot of stuff that goes down that's both psychological, but at the same time it's very, very emotional. There's a lot of truths that are revealed and everything, and basically a lot of truths that have to be dealt with, truths that that people didn't want to be true, but are sort of forced to go along with. It's basically like a fight with fate sort of thing.
That's awesome. So everybody can go ahead and get entangled with all the chaos in the first 2 books, and then get ready for your trick or treat. The resolution, it sounds like the resolution to all your cliffhangers will come out in this 3rd book on Halloween. So
not necessarily.
Oh.
The third book of the Seraphim trilogy is the Requiem, and that one's actually going to be coming out next year on the summer solstice, particularly because that's when everything goes down in the 3rd book. So
okay. So
I do a lot of symbolism.
Okay. Well, then it sounds like we're going to get some resolution and some healing, but be prepared to be left in the dark on a few things until a later date. That is fantastic. Oh, yeah. Okay, so we are so happy to have had you on the show today. I'm going to practice pronouncing that title, and if you are willing, come Halloween time, we would love to have you back on to discuss the release of that book, Bloodlines, when that takes place. So we would love to have you back, and it was great having you today. And with that being said, goodbye to all the crazy babies. Make sure you go out and get Kathleen's books on Amazon.com, and we will hopefully reconvene with this storyline in Halloween. Goodbye, crazy babies.
Bye.
All right, crazy babies, thank you so much. I hope you enjoyed today's episode as much as I enjoyed interviewing today's author. And I also want to leave you with a few recommendations of some other great talent and some other great books for all you readers out there. Amazon.com is where you can find all of these books. The first is a poetry collection called In the Wind I Stand by Rafiq Ramdani. We also have a beautiful children's book with a wonderful message called Miss Sally Ann, that is by the author Marie Moldovan. And then we have a psychological thriller called Vosses on Amarum by the author Martin Hoyle. And that is the first book in a 7-book series called Filet de Bedlam. And last but not least, yours truly. Check out my children's books. There are 2 of them on Amazon.com. One is called Beautiful Boy, and the other is called There's a Me Under My Bed. So I hope you guys go out and grab those books. Let us know what you think. Be sure to leave us a review and enjoy the creativity and the beautiful message from each of the talented authors. Thank you so much, and we'll see you on the next jam sessions. Bye for now.